Fallout 76 has been out for roughly 3 months now if you count from right around when the beta did start. During that time, the vast majority of the content on this channel has been just that, Fallout 76. But over the past month or so, you've seen tidbits of either Fallout 4 or some other games making their way onto the channel. Also, after playing Fallout 76 predominantly for those 3 months and even making quite a bit of content on it, there's an interesting component to going back to Fallout 4. I think it highlights some of the good parts of Fallout 4 as well as some of the bad parts of Fallout 76, but even vice versa. Some of the improvements they definitely made in the Fallout franchise and this engine with Fallout 76 that you go back to Fallout 4 and you're like, hey, what happened? So in this video, I'm just going to be talking about my experience with this. And maybe even for some of you, while you are mostly checked out from Fallout with Fallout 76, maybe this video will give you some incentive to get back into it with Fallout 4 or even alternatively some of the older games. This is actually a video you guys voted on this channel, so if you do want to vote in one of those future polls, you can subscribe. But either way, jumping into it, I think one of the biggest differences between the two games and really the rest of the Fallout franchise and Fallout 76 is choice. Something that at first glance probably seems fairly simple, but I think if you actually look at Fallout 76, some of the major issues and one of the reasons a lot of people are playing is really the absence of choice in that game. And not in just one asset, but actually in several. Jumping into Fallout 4, there's really two major ways I feel like of doing playthroughs. You can do the traditional one on easy, medium, hard, whatever difficulty setting you do want, or alternatively, you could do the survival mode. If you've never played Fallout 4 on survival mode, I would re-download the game right now or even just buy it right now and give it a go. Fallout 4 survival mode is difficult, sometimes can be immensely frustrating, but it is also a pretty amazing experience. And I think one of the only true ways to experience that game, but even further, a lot of times while I'm doing this, I like to actually tweak a lot of the settings of survival mode. I'm able to do this through the use of mods, but it also is very simple. All these variables exist in the game, and Bethesda could quite simply implement something for me to mess with this. Things like making it so I can one-shot enemies, but at the same time, they one-shot me. That's another way that I really recommend playing. It actually makes a lot of encounters in this game super tense, where you just have to position well and actually land the right shot, but if you position poorly, that's it. You're gonna have to reload from your previous save. Those are both very simple things, either being on survival mode or not being on survival mode, or being on my super hardcore survival mode as I call it, or just regular survival mode. Being able to choose between those different modes has gotten me to replay Fallout 4 several times more than I probably would have otherwise, all while keeping the rest of the game fairly vanilla. But when you switch back over to Fallout 76, you realize it's really lacking that. You have to play Fallout 76 in the way Bethesda wanted you to. They decide how much damage certain weapons do, they decide how long it takes to take down some of those harder enemies, and I'm just not a fan of that. I feel like in a lot of these previous Fallout games, the choice and customizability was one of the best parts. Everybody had their own playstyle. Everybody even further had their own mod lists. Even though modding isn't quite ready yet for Fallout 76, and that I can understand why, I don't really see a good reason as to why some of these other customizability options couldn't be available through things like private servers. Lots of other games have done this in the past, and just having a server that I can invite a bunch of my friends onto and actually modify some of the core game settings could actually make this game quite a bit more enjoyable, even if it's just for messing around on. Moving beyond that, as I kind of mentioned, one of the other big parts of Fallout 4 that'll really stand out to you is the modding scene. Even though a lot of people have moved over to Fallout 76, many have ended up coming back, and we've gotten some really high quality mod content. It's like you have a constant stream of just free DLC coming for this game week by week. And I really question if the official stuff we see from Bethesda will even remotely compare to the quality that modders are putting out for Fallout 4 even now 3 years after its release. But as I mentioned before, there's also some things that Fallout 76 definitely does better. I think going back into Fallout 4 immediately, you realize how many quality of life features they just implemented by default into Fallout 76. Things like the holotape autoplay, all the different sections you do have in your inventory, or even some other things that just look much nicer, like the paper map you have in Fallout 76, I think is actually really cool. That's not to say the Pip-Boy map is bad, I just would say it's inferior. Or even other things like the wheel menu. I totally rely on the wheel menu in Fallout 76, and I do genuinely wish I had that in Fallout 4. Some of these are no doubt getting backported through things like modding, and that is pretty awesome and special. One of the other big things that stands out to me with Fallout 4 is how ready I am to start a totally new playthrough. I don't really know how many times I've started playthroughs, I've finished a few of them, but how many times I've gotten through like the first half of the game is definitely up there. there, let's say 10 to 15. Yet using a mod such as Start Me Up and just quickly going through some of those intro quests and actually getting the game wide open, where you could choose which of the major factions you want to side with or which side quests you want to explore. Even though I've done most of this content already, it just still feels so refreshing and interesting to do. Whether that just be because I'm using a couple of new mods along the way to really spice up the gameplay, or even alternatively, maybe I'll just go a different route. Maybe this time I'll try and truly be an evil character, coupling that with Sim Settlements Conqueror that gives you totally new ways to explore that option. I made a full video on that, and I think it is without a doubt worth re-downloading and replaying the game for. Or alternatively, maybe I'm just gonna side with the faction I never do, like the Minutemen. This is one of the biggest glaring differences between Fallout 76 and Fallout 4. I don't think anyone was saying Fallout 4 had the best base game to begin with, but it has so much more replayability, like astonishingly more replayability. After doing a quest in Fallout 76 like twice, I'm like, alright, I totally understand this, I probably never want to do this quest again. It's not dynamic. To get the backstory, you just spend a bunch of time listening to somebody talk to you or reading a bunch of holotapes. There's just not nearly as much interaction from the player side, and I think that really took a lot of the steam out of the main story for me, which is a big shame because I think the argument could be made that Fallout 76's story has more potential. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on there. Yet in execution, Fallout 4's is significantly better, which is ironic because I wouldn't even say Fallout 4's story is one of the good ones of the Fallout franchise, except Far Harbor. Far Harbor's pretty awesome. And I think if anything, going back to Fallout 4 has really made me want like a truly multiplayer Fallout game. Not this online survival BS, but just give me co-op. Allow me to play Fallout 4 with a couple of friends. Basically exactly what the guys over at Skyrim Together are doing, but except for Fallout and not Skyrim. I was never against the idea of a multiplayer Fallout, and I think going back to Fallout 4 only exaggerates that further. There's so many cool things you can do in that game that would still be really cool to do with a friend or two. A lot of the multiplayer stuff in Fallout 76 can be fun, and honestly a lot of my issues arise with some of the other decisions, the lack of human NPCs, the lack of dialogue choices, the lack of really any choices. So if you haven't played Fallout 4 in a while and you just maybe have been messing around with Fallout 76 or even just following Fallout 76, I feel like it's actually a pretty good time to start a new playthrough. As I mentioned, there's been a constant flow of new modding content over the past month or two. I've made a couple of videos looking at some of these, and Sim Settlements Conqueror in particular is a awesome one. It's one of the few mods out there that I feel like isn't just something you play for a couple of hours and then move on from. It truly is something that will amplify and change up an entire playthrough, and for that reason, I think it's worth a new playthrough. I'm not sure if it's a good sign or a bad sign if the next entry coming in makes the previous one feel a bit better, so Fallout 76 coming out made me enjoy Fallout 4 more in some ways, or at least allowed me to appreciate certain aspects and choices Bethesda made with Fallout 4. Hopefully the future brings improvement for Fallout 76. I truly believe that Fallout 76 is going to be the last Fallout release we see for a very long time. Bethesda made tons of comments talking about how they wanted the game to last forever. So the takeaway from this video, hey, if you're enjoying Fallout 76, congrats, but I think a lot of people are growing tired of it, and I think that means it's a great time to start a new playthrough of Fallout 4. Modders have been busy, there's a lot of new content for you to explore, but even further, if you've taken a break from it for the past few months, you'll realize how fresh things start to feel once you jump back into it. And actually, just as a separate aside for Fallout 4, and those of you having issues with mods for Fallout 4, I talked about this in a past video, just kind of raising awareness, providing some resources as to how people can fix this. We actually got somewhat of an official response from Bethesda on the Bethesda.net forums, saying that a fix is currently in the works for Xbox One mod downloads failing. Many players have managed to solve this with the troubleshooting tips in this article, which we've just updated with more information. That was posted just yesterday, so I'll have a link to the article and the post down below. Although it doesn't seem to be a fix-all, there still are people having issues even after trying everything in the article, but again, hopefully we do see this patch shortly. And also for Fallout 4, there is new Creation Club content coming, although they have touched on how it may start to slow down going forward.